Greetings, everyone. Lomberg here. We have yet another season of Global Conquest, 3 months after the last season. So this came really fast. And the format has changed a little bit. So I'm going to cover some of that with the new format, the smaller groups, the different globe grouping. I'm also going to cover some of my pattern recognition of the matching and prediction for round 2 and round 3 of matching, but take it with a grain of salt. And finally, most useful will be my groupings of including the merger status data of each of the 10 global conquest groups. And then, bear with me, the spreadsheet will be a work in progress. I'll update that as more information progresses as we go through global conquest. So this will be the first of a series that deals with the same spreadsheet as I update data. So let's get started with the spreadsheet. As usual, it will be linked in the description below. It will be public, read only. You can make a copy for your own purposes. The summary tab is just giving you the basics of Global Conquest, giving you some of the information about that there's only going to be 3 different group matches for the preliminary. There's 3 rounds. The timing hasn't changed. Score details. It goes through kind of what the groups are in this season. So you can see here, the groups in this season are in pairs of 32. So there's 32 nations in each of these groups, and there's 10. So it goes all the way to server 647, which should be many of those servers' first taste of global conquest, which is a fun event if you're not trying to win and if you're not saving an inordinate amount of speeds and heals. Last season, the results are here too. You can see here who the winner was, and second, third, and fourth places. I've included those. When you go into the Global Conquest, there is, if you click on the button, and I'll show you in a second, these rules are actually pretty well written, and you should read it in terms of, if you're not familiar with Global Conquest, read the rules. Also take a look at the rewards. It's really good for merit and extension rewards, so try to attend 2 rounds if you can. If you have room in your server and nobody's going to get to that 250 limit, drop in a city and attend a few battles because you do get some decent merit from it. And then finally, just a status of a point of clarification here. These global conquest groups are different from the globes. The globes are the ones where every time there's 87 cities, a new globe is created. And I just wanted to kind of show us current status of the number of worlds. So you can see only 6 worlds after a bunch of mergers remain in globe 1. So naturally, you can see that when you look at these server groupings, it looks like, hey, there's a lot of groups, there's a lot of servers in group 1. That's actually not true. You just have fewer servers. So there's only 32 servers or nations between server 1 and 182, and that's what makes up group 1. So if we go through this, I had an ambitious plan here to try to predict based on analysis of the last matching algorithm and detail. Can I predict what will be the matching and apply that algorithm and see how I do? So what's interesting is I was successfully able to do it really only with one globe, my globe, which would be group 3, Global Conquest Group 3, or in other words, nations 285 through 372. So this group of 32, here is just the listings and everything matched up according to the algorithm of what round 1 is. Based on last season and observation, this is my prediction of who the opponents will be for round 2 and who the opponents will be for round 3. But really, that's guesswork. And if you've watched some of my earlier work on Global Conquest, you know that I have a wonderful success rate of 0 in predicting the semifinalists as well as the winner. So take it with a huge grain of salt. Some of the caveats is I thought that, so there's a huge assumption here. The huge assumption is that Camel will follow the same logic that they followed for matching last season in this season. So that's a big assumption. Second assumption is that, the logic that they applied was to groups of 44 nations in each group, and now the groups are smaller, so there may be some changes in the logic there. So we'll see. As this global conquest progresses, I will keep trying to see if I can update and predict better as we go through this round. The spreadsheet will remain the same, but I will be doing some changes, so the link should be the same. The most relevant information for your preparation is basically this column B, which is the merger status. So here What I have is a formula from a list of all the mergers that are announced in the Discord page by Princess of Doom. And so all that this is doing is just giving you some relevant information when they merged, who they merged with, what's the most recent merger, and whether they're unmerged. So unmerged will be in purple. Um, red is relevant information because basically red is most recent merger announced August 5th that it will happen. So that means that similar to last season, Global Conquest is going to start, and there's going to be some teams that drop off, and there's going to be some teams that increase in strength because a merger will happen in the middle of Global Conquest. As an example, you can see here in Globe 1, here you can see that this is one of the mergers, 113, 107, 119 merging in. That means that 107 and 110, after that first battle, so they will fight tomorrow or Friday night in the U.S., Saturday morning elsewhere. So they will fight in that first battle, but after that first battle, after they merge into 113 and 114, those worlds will be blank and empty like you're used to seeing. So I was ambitious and I tried to say that can I apply the algorithm that I observed by looking at the data? Now, I don't have data for all the worlds. I really have data for my world because that's what I tracked last time. I thought it would be consistent, meaning they would take that same algorithm and apply that logic to each of the globes since there's 32 teams for each, and it's not. So for example, here I was going through and guess what? This is limited. This is a manual process. So this was a optimistic overtaking. I went through and kind of said, where do I have spy cities? And as you can see, even here, it's a work in process. I'm trying to validate which one of these round ones are true. So if you look at the round one, so let's look at globe 2. So in this group of nations, the algorithm that I applied, predicted the matching perfectly for round one, except a flip between 250 and 251. I don't really understand it, why that logic flipped between, what I observed in my nation and here, but you can see, so that means that you can take everything related to this with a grain of salt because the algorithm will fail if I didn't predict first round correctly. So I'll see if I can update it and see if it's just a tweak of these two cities or how it works. For the remaining groups, I've included the really the useful information will be this merger status. And you can see it here clearly. Not Globe, but Group 4 has a lot of activity between merger and a lot of, advantage, disadvantage between merged and unmerged nations. But I don't have enough spy accounts in these cities to validate these. So basically, this one is solid in terms of round one and predictability. This one 183 to 278 is okay. It's going to have some errors because I know that I mispredicted at least 250 and 251. Globe 1 or Group 1, work in process. So I'll validate that and give an update. 4 through 10, you can see there's a tab for each one of these. What became interesting is that when I looked at 9, it was completely off. And so here's just some of the logic and behind the scenes of how I did it. These are formulas. You can basically just collapse it. And you can see here, this is where things just went haywire. So the later on worlds and the newer worlds, it doesn't look like the algorithm's working. So don't rely on it at all. And it's not really relevant for you because there's really no relevant merger information too because everybody is unmerged. Really, the relevant worlds will be this one and forward. So here you can see that. Finally, the last tab is going to be the list of all the merged nations. If you've seen my videos before, you've seen this list. I've updated it. And so here is where it's pulling the data from. It includes the most recent one, the August merger, and this is in sorted for the most the highest numerical merged nation first. So what this means is that green means this is the nation that these red ones merged into. Red means they no longer will exist and they'll merge into 582. So that's how you interpret that list. Coming back to the game, a lot of events. I've complained about this before. You guys feel the pressure. Global Conquest is typically not one that you're worried about losing troops. However, it requires speeds, it requires heals, it requires coordination, it requires effort, and it requires time. So these events, and it's on a bad time for those in the U.S. Just based on those timings, it'll still be, you know, server time 2, 10, and 18. So two of those times are bad. Um, and also, it falls on Friday, Saturday, the core part of the weekend that people are not used to doing events, right? So it doesn't conflict with Sunday events, but it really is occupies a lot of Saturdays, and it goes for a long time. So if you look at it here, you can see that the season is going to last six days. That just means that it's every other week. You have the rounds of Global Conquest announced for each of the preliminaries, and there's the semifinals. I think there's some break, and then there's the final. So at least you're looking at 6 weeks for the 3 rounds that everybody will participate. It will be a little bit easier to make the semifinals, right? Because there's 32 groups now. So how can you see it? So just some basic things. You want to make sure you look at this right here, right? So click that button there so you can see that the max limit, is 45,000. That's not actually what I wanted to show. I wanted to show this button right here where you can see the information. That's where the useful information is. Where I got most of my data is from this battle bulletin right here. So if you click on it, go to the last tab, schedule log, and scroll down, you'll see this is the group of 32 nations. So 32 nations, 16 will make the semifinals. So they pretty much made this format very similar to DoD or Duel of Dominance. So it's basically you have everyone can max out at 30 points. If you win, you get 10 points per preliminary round, not round, but matchup. If you play second, you get 7, and then if you're third or fourth, you get 5. It doesn't matter, 5 both. And then if you're tied with the number of points, as usual, it depends on how much you win by, and the margin will help out. But winning those first, second places is most critical to you advancing. That being said, you just have to be mindful of how many speeds and heals you're spending, what you're asking of your alliance players to do, how often you're going to ask them to move alliances for global conquest, and this becomes a pretty heavy burden, right? So before, when it was less frequent, it was more of a personal sacrifice to lose the benefits of elite wars, to lose the benefits of the weekly events of Doom Arena, and less so Zombie Uprising, because you can do that with fewer days. But all of those require a cooldown of 7 days. That cooldown, we might need to suggest that with Global Conquest being more common, the common strategy is that you pull your players into one group so that you can fight better, right? So that the deterrent to that is you lose the events and the cooldown period for attending other events. So it's a sacrifice, and people will get tired of so many events. So that's really something important to keep in mind. And people will get tired of using speeds and heals. Those are consumables that really don't help your city at all. It's just to win events. And people do that. People overspend. Some people carry the weight for the alliance, and they get tired and burnt out. So we just have to keep that in mind. So a good way to do this would be to try to not just be engaged in winning entirely. Have fun. Make it more of a TA without speed approach, and that way other nations will also comment down. Now, of course, it's going to be whoever spends the most can still win it and pull out an upset. Um, you know, and also it really depends on how these mappings ended up being, right? So if you look at our group, for the first time, we actually got lucky because we're towards the front of the group here. You can see 286 is probably going to win it all, right? They won last season against much older worlds, so these are newer worlds. And then if you're at the bottom end, like 372 here, they are getting a merger, so that will be good. But some of these other unmerged worlds at the bottom, I mean, they're just really, really disadvantageous. So the cutoff of these groups really helps determine how lucky you are, because you know who your opponents are. So finally, we got lucky. If you look at some of the other worlds, for example, here, 373, which I think is one of our vet Woody's World. He got lucky as well, but not so much because he's in an unmerged nation, so he's going to be fighting merged nations. Um, but it's still better. 373 is going to be older and have much more longer gameplay than the other end of it. Just like 285 here is going to have an advantage over 372, which I believe is the world of another of our vets, Shark, and so we may meet. So that's all I have, guys. Hopefully, the merger information will be relevant. I'll be updating it with some of the results and strength of schedule, as well as predictions and mispredictions, as I often do. And hopefully, the algorithm and the matching logic helps more than it confuses. But again, disclaimer: use it with a huge caveat. That's it, guys. Good luck in Global Conquest. I think it's fun that it is more inclusive. It's fun that more people will be able to advance to the semifinals. So this is, I think, a good change. The frequency is something that probably is not good, but again, if we all don't spend that much, it can be a fun event. With that, I'm going to wish you all good luck and a wonderful weekend. Take care. Have fun.